Welcome again to Lakeshore Focus, a weekly show highlighting the key issues, significant events, and interesting people in our region. I'm Keith Kirkpatrick. Emergencies and natural disasters occur all the time, but how prepared is the average citizen for such events? Whether it's a tornado, winter emergency, or flood, the emergency management agencies know exactly how to handle it. With us today are the directors of two local emergency management agencies, Jodi Richmond of Lake County and Russell Shirley of Porter County. Glad to have both of you here. Did you guys coordinate your little dress thing today?
It was completely on accident.
Really?
Yes, it was.
So isn't it kind of scary that emergency preparedness people wear red?
We think a lot alike.
Yeah.
But, I mean, what is that, like to cover the blood or?
No, no, actually I wear red for a reason. If I go to an incident, I want people to know that the guy in a red shirt is the guy they're looking for.
Yeah.
Really?
So they can find me.
Do you
Bright
do the same
colors,
thing?
yes.
Bright colors, yes.
Bright colors, so they can always point you out.
Yes.
So I have to ask this question. Now, you guys, this is a full-time gig for both of you. I mean, you know, we don't have emergencies all the time, so what do you guys do the rest of the day? Sit around, play cards? I mean, you know, what do you do?
I wish we could. There are not always big disasters going on every single day, but there are quite a few small ones that we still have to manage and work with. But then on the other side, we do a lot of the preparing for disasters.
Little ones like what?
Maybe a structural fire within a city or town, and they may need some mutual aid assistance. You know, we try to keep up on all the events that are going on within our whole county, so that we can be better prepared to help them if it grows larger.
Are you guys the ones also, if there's a chemical spill and all that stuff, do you guys deal with that?
And my office does, yes. The environmental department is a branch of my office, and the hazmat team is a part of that.
But not for you?
No, ours is a totally separate department,
Okay.
and it's the Lake County Hazmat team, and they're the ones that go out and do those sorts of calls. But we do work together quite often.
So what are you doing when you're not playing cards and you're not responding to these big emergencies? What do you do for preparedness?
Well, as Jodi says, we're preparing, like, as an example right now, with all the weather that we've had recently, we're doing a lot of work on our sirens, making sure that those sirens are working and functioning, getting estimates for repairs, just constantly doing something.
Why are we still using sirens when everybody seems to have a phone that pops up and tells
A very
you?
good question. The best explanation that I can have for that is the sirens have been in place for a long time, and it's old technology. A lot of people like old technology, and it's an outdoor warning system. If you're outside working in your lawn or working in your yard and you'll hear that siren, you may not be carrying your phone.
The vast majority of the time, I don't hear those sirens, though, and I hear that from a lot of people.
Are you outside, though?
Yep, sometimes. But
Well, the sirens aren't meant to be heard everywhere in the county. It's usually the most populated regions.
Okay.
So if you live near a town or a city that has a pretty good sized population, you should be able to hear it.
Are you the guys that trigger the emergency warnings on the phones and
We
all that
can
stuff?
be.
Okay.
It's also done by in our case, the Porter County Sheriff's Department, or a 911 system.
Who does
And
it
in
for you?
Lake County, all of the individual cities and towns are responsible to set off their own sirens if they have them.
Okay, so I think everybody kind of knows we've got emergencies with tornadoes and wind and storms and that kind of thing, and snow. Do we have, what else do you prepare for? I mean, what about the non-natural disasters? What do you worry about in this area? Nuclear bombs?
We're a heavily industrialized region. So obviously hazardous material spills and things along that line are a big concern for us. We work with the local emergency planning committee to help formulate plans for evacuation, sheltering in place, and things along that line.
One of the biggest things that I think that is really fabulous for the region and for the Indiana Department of Homeland Security has us broken up in districts, and District 1 is Porter County, LaPorte, Newton, and Jasper. So all of the county EMA directors for those counties, we all work together also. So we can bring ideas to each other's counties of what we're doing and what they're doing and put them together to be more district-wide, so that if we're doing an event with, you know, let's say public outreach to our schools, for natural disasters, and like you were saying, for a lot of things that are in the news nowadays about active shooters, things that a lot of people don't generally think about and don't want to think about for bad things happening. So those are the types of things that we do behind the scenes when we're not actually physically working a disaster.
You know, it looks to me like the highest probability for something to really happen that's not a natural disaster would be something that's more terrorist, or just somebody decides to blow something up who's just kind of a crazy person or whatever. Because I think most of our industry's kind of buckled down and got a lot of safety, but if somebody penetrates that, what do you guys worry about in terms of somebody sneaking in? Can you even talk about that, or would you have to kill me later? Or the audience, whoever's watching this.
No, we can talk about it, I think. Maybe not in so much detail, but the industry is very up on their, I believe, critical infrastructure and their securities. And then we work with them with those sorts of things through the private sector. So then we take that kind of knowledge, and I think then we integrate that into our local hospitals, into our schools, into our municipality buildings, because you do get those scares for, like you had said, the bombs or the powdered substance. You do get those quite often. It may not make the news. It could be rather small, but we do work with those sorts of things too.
We do a lot of information sharing. Both of us go to quite a few meetings of school safety committees and things like that, information sharing and working group.
Bioterrorism hospital groups.
Right.
And
So,
There's a lot
I
of
mean,
different things.
if anybody watches and reads anything, I mean, it should be obvious around here, any place where there's large amount of petroleum or fuel and power and that kind of thing is obvious, something that a terrorist or a crazy person would
something
want
to
to go
look
after,
at.
right?
Yeah.
So, well, if that happens, I mean, you guys respond to clear the area out and everything? I mean, you're the ones who say,
But our
Evacuate?
primary function is to coordinate, not to go in and physically evacuate people or go in to feed people. We coordinate all the different activities of all the different agencies that are there to help.
as my kids used to say, you get to be the boss at that point. You're the
Well,
boss.
not
You're the
really
boss
the
of me.
boss. We're just kind of like an advisor.
Okay.
There are times when the local fire chief or the local police chief, they don't really want to follow our advice. That's entirely up to them, but we're here to
So who's
offer the assistance.
Who is in charge? And I mean, it seems to me there should be somebody
It depends
in
on
charge.
what type of an incident is.
Okay.
If it's obviously a fire-related incident, then the fire department's going to be in charge. If it's a police hostage type situation, then the police are going to be in charge. And we're there just to assist them. What more can I get? Can I bring people in to help close your streets down? Can I coordinate getting lunch for you guys? What can we help coordinate?
When's it not a fire or police matter? Is there an emergency that doesn't fall in that category?
Sometimes there have been incidences in both of our counties dealing with the FAA, with plane crashes.
Okay.
The railroads, Porter County had an incident with that just a little while ago. So it just depends. The incident really drives the incident commander and who it would be, and then how it coordinates from there.
And then weather too, right? Weather
Yes.
pretty clearly. Who's in charge during the weather emergencies? I mean,
It's kind of a combination. The local highway superintendent really has a lot to say about what's going to happen and what roads are shut down and what roads are open and things like that. So again, we're there to coordinate. We're not there to take over anyone's incident. Firefighters, police, those types of agencies are typically very territorial. They don't want somebody coming in and tell them how to do it.
what would be a circumstance where you would need to say, we need everybody to evacuate? And I mean a huge evacuation. I mean, I assume if there was some sort of a gigantic nuclear thing in Chicago or something like
We've
that.
trained for that as well.
And I mean, so you get online, I mean, what would you be telling people? You know, I mean, get in your car and drive? I mean, get out of here?
Depending on the situation, sometimes it may be an issue where they have to shelter in place. And what they would need to prepare for that. It may be an incident where we need to evacuate them, X amount of radius miles away from a specific area. One of the things Russ had said is that, we are there to help coordinate. And the other thing that we also do is we are their next step from the locals to the county and then to the state to help bring in state resources, or even from their federal resources to help in an incident.
So so what else would you tell somebody if we had to get out of here? I mean, am I supposed to go fill my car up with gas? Am I supposed to take jugs of water? I mean, or do you give that kind of instruction to tell people what to do?
We could do a public service announcement along those lines. We're trying to actually, at least in Porter County, we're trying to actually put together some public service announcements for specific type scenarios, such as a blizzard or flooding or what have you. So we're working on putting those together right now.
So you would give that kind of specifics to people, like this
Yeah.
is what you really need to do?
Yes, and hopefully the kind of public outreach that we can do ahead of time will help that situation even more smoothly for an evacuation, because it will be rather hectic, so that the families and your businesses and your different other organizations will already have those go kits, their emergency kits already in place, so that if they do have to pick up and evacuate, they can grab that kit and go.
So do you guys do a lot of education about that?
Yes.
So do you think,
Yes.
We speak
how
to
many people are prepared for this? What percentage of people really are prepared to grab their go kit?
a small percentage.
Yeah. I think that we have grown tremendously in our whole district with all of our 5 counties within getting that information out to the public. Now, whether or not they go that step further and create that home plan or home evacuation or reunification plan or their emergency preparedness kits, it's kind of out of our hands at that point. But we still drive the same point as much as we can to this kid's school, to the hospitals, to the public Lions clubs or
We do
Rotary clubs.
a lot of speaking in the civic organizations.
So you'll hear somebody say, well, that's silly. I mean, why do I need a go kit? Because, I mean, that just
It's only silly until you need it.
Okay. And if I just buy one of these, it's just going to make me think that it's going to happen.
Well, that's possible, but then if it does happen, you'll be more ready than the next person. So then hopefully if you're more ready, then you can maybe help your neighbor or help your family members
That's
if
a good
they're not so
motivation.
much ready.
That's a good motivation.
It's another additional thing that we do is we have the community emergency response teams, where we teach civilians, if you will, how to either help themselves first and then how to help their neighbors, how to turn off their gas, how to turn off their water supply and things along that in their homes.
What's a scenario that you need to say bunker down as opposed to get out?
A chemical spill would be a good example.
Just stay in place?
Stay in place. Probably most of the chemical spills you would probably shelter in place as opposed to evacuating.
And unfortunately, back in the 2008 flooding, some folks had to shelter in place before they could even get removed from their home because they had to be removed by boat. So you do have that time frame where you may have to shelter in place and then be evacuated, or in the chemical part where you're staying indoors. I also wanted to touch base on one thing that Russ was talking about, getting that notification out. Each county has numerous mass notification systems to get information out, like a public service announcement via the telephone, via text messaging, via email. Technology has grown so much and given us so many new opportunities to reach individual citizens in the event of a disaster.
So back real quick to the go kits. You put that together yourself or you go buy one?
Either one.
Either way, if you put it together yourself, you know what's in there.
Right.
If you buy one, well, is this in there or not? I don't remember.
Right.
So
We also, I know on both of our websites and the Indiana Department of Homeland Security and FEMA.gov, numerous places you can look to get a checklist of what you will need exactly for that in-place sheltering kit, or your survival kit for your car. That's a big one we were looking at with all of the storms.
winter's coming.
Okay, wait, this is getting complicated. So I have to have a kit for my car, I have to have a go kit, and I have to have a stay in place kit?
You don't have to.
Sounds like a pretty big investment at the moment.
It could be.
How much is your future worth?
Yeah. How much is your individual
family.
life and your family? These things are kind of scary to think about sometimes, but I think that's one of the things that drives Russ and I. We want to help. We really want to help people to understand that bad things do happen. And the more we can prepare you as an individual, the more you can help your neighbor. You can help, have a plan for your business. Have a plan for here at the studio. If there was, an event to happen, where would we go?
So what if it's a gas thing, like in the air, talk about chemical, but if gas is moving through the area of some sort, that's get out?
Possibly. Again, it's going to depend on concentration and on the level of toxicity in the gas.
The wind
what type,
direction,
the wind
the
direction.
weather.
Again, there's always so many variables with every type of incident.
Well, how about, I'm trying to, there's a lot of scenarios, aren't there? I mean,
Yes,
you
there
guys
are.
really got to think. I mean,
More scenarios than you can think
Yeah,
of.
what about water? I mean, so that's another thing, if the water supply gets contaminated, right? Because they always
Right.
talk about if you really want to affect the community, do something to the water.
In the past few years, I believe in Lake County, just off the top of my head, we've probably had over a dozen water boil orders, when we used our mass notification out to different cities and towns that had issues, a water main break or something happened, and we sent out a water boil issue to boil your water before you used it. And then we were able to reach out to the fire departments and police departments to help distribute bottled water until that water boil order was lifted, and then they could continue to use their regular tap water.
So does that mean you guys have a pool of money to draw upon for emergencies, or?
We have a
you
very
to-
small pool of money.
So you can only buy so much water?
Correct. We would rely on Red Cross and other agencies such as Red Cross, Salvation Army, and things like that for initial. If it was a large-scale incident, at some point the state would step in. The state has millions of gallons of bottled water stored, so they would be
In
able
a
to ship it
secret
to us.
spot?
Well, no, it's in caves in southern Indiana someplace. I'm not sure where it's at exactly. But they have that capability. They have that, food, blankets, basic sheltering materials. That's all stored down in southern Indiana.
And that's great. But in the event that we're dealing with something right now, that's one of the reasons why we do have the information sharing groups, because we have done a lot of work with the private sector, and they have really stepped up and wanted to help out their communities and help out the counties. Because if that's coming from southern Indiana, it's fabulous. But what are we going to do in the meantime?
Right.
So how about viruses and things like that? That seems to be the next
would be
thing.
through the health
like
departments,
Ebola and so forth. I mean, what role do you play if all of a sudden there's a virus and then there's 5 and then there's 20 and it starts spreading really quick?
Well, as Jodi said earlier, we are part of the Bioterrorism Hospital Group, and we meet at least every other month, usually every month, because there's so many things on the plate that we have to talk about. We do a lot of exercises with the hospitals to prepare for those mass evacuation type of events, for sheltering in place and what have you. But we have at least one exercise every year with the hospitals, and typically it's 2 or 3 every year.
And we also have, throughout, I know, both of our counties, the pod exercises, where you may have to do mass immunizations or mass prophylaxis.
The pods are points of distribution.
So do you both have one of those really cool white suits that covers your head and everything like that?
I do.
I do.
You
Yes.
both
But
have one of those?
yes,
I
yes,
should have
yes,
had you
yes.
bring one to wear on the show. That would have been cool.
They're not very fashionable.
No.
No.
And probably not really easy to move around in.
No.
So, but you have your own personal, it's just your size?
No. And that is very interesting you say that, because I do run into a lot of issues coming from a smaller woman's perspective when it comes to emergency equipment. There are a lot of vendors.
It's not for small people?
No, there are a lot of vendors that are not very petite friendly.
Are we
So
trying
it's
to,
very
are we only
hard.
trying to save the big people?
I guess.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, I guess.
Works for me.
Russ, you're good? You're good? How prepared are we? I mean, your assessment, how prepared are we really for dealing with something major?
I think we're in pretty good shape. Much better shape than a lot of areas of Indiana.
Why are we better than
Because Indiana District 1, as again, the 5 counties, we work together, we train together, we've all gone to exercises together. A lot of us went to New York for Hurricane Sandy. We've done a lot of work together for the last 7 years. I know there's a lot of inter-rivalry between politics and what have you, and our district has over 400 members in our task force, all volunteers.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you give us? 10 is like, we are absolutely 100% prepared for
Probably
anything.
8 or 9.
Okay.
And I think the biggest part, one of the other components that we could add to Russ, what he had just said, is that we spend our money together. When it comes to funding, you were talking about that big pool of money that we have. Since things have gone district-wide, so has a lot of the grant money. So instead of everybody buying the same widget for every single county, now we can buy bigger widgets and then share them between us.
So if there was a message that you wanted to get out to the general public that you just feel like we need the general public to understand this about emergency preparedness, what would that message be?
Well, in general, I think the Go Kits is an important item, especially in your cars, because people travel in their cars all the time in the winter. It's very easy to become stuck or get stuck in a snowdrift or something like that.
Oh, this is going to mean I have to tell my wife she's right about keeping the gallon of water in our car. Oh my gosh.
Well, the problem with that is it'll probably freeze.
Good point. What would your message be?
Very similar, just to be proactive and be positive in society. I think there has been a lot of percentages going up when it comes to individuals helping individuals. I see things every day that just make me smile because I see somebody else lending a hand to somebody else, and that's what we need. Because in the end, the big picture is to help everybody, and the first responders are not always going to be able to get to you in those first few hours. So you're going to have to help yourself and help others.
So be prepared and be willing to help some other people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you both for being on and for taking the leadership that you do in the fields. I feel much safer just knowing that you're in place. Thanks.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Do you remember the last time you traveled by air and had to go through airport security? There you were, standing in line, shoes off, holding your belt. Put your laptop in one of the trays. Take the money out of your pockets, jewelry off. Place your bags on the belt. Security says, no, not that way. It's a pain. There are two ways you can react to this cumbersome process. You can accept it or you can complain. I have an idea for you complainers. Let's have the FAA allow airlines to have two classifications for flights. Ones that require security checks for all passengers and others that do not. When you go online to book your air travel, you can choose the hassle-free plane or the one that makes you nervous about missing your flight because you have to struggle through check-in. If you didn't like the intrusion into your personal space or the thought of some stranger seeing you naked in the scanner, pick a non-TSA screening flight. Think about it. You arrive at the airport and much to your delight, you get to keep your liquids, don't have to empty your pockets. The best, no lines, no waiting, no glaring security guards. In fact, a smiling host greets you with, welcome to our no hassle, no TSA flights. You look across the way and see the other unlucky people being treated like livestock, subjected to indignity and frustration. They are lined up, waiting, stripping down practically to undergarments, placing all their worldly possessions on conveyor belts or in a germ-ridden plastic bin. You smile and keep walking. Oh yeah, one thing to remember, if there is anyone who wanted to bring a fifth of whiskey, packet of cocaine, handgun, flammable liquid, or timing device, they're on your flight. Thanks for watching Lakeshore Focus. What are your thoughts about the show? Did we inspire or inform you in some way? Send your comments to our email address, which is on the screen, or reach us through our website, also listed. You can visit the website and watch previous episodes of Lakeshore Focus. Tell your friends and family to check out our great shows. Join us next week for another Lakeshore Focus. I'm Keith Kirkpatrick saying, make a positive difference in our world today.